Can we talk about some of the famous names that people around the world would know who, in your experience, have taken part in these rituals that you've conducted? You say you've conducted them in Europe and the United States. Can we start with the United States?
Yes, I have seen at rituals, I have seen George Bush, I have seen Madeleine Albright, I have seen Henry Kissinger, I have seen Ronald Reagan, and I have also, by the way, seen his wife, Nancy Reagan. I have seen Hillary Clinton before I knew she was Hillary Clinton at the time at these rituals. She is involved. The other people that I have named and are, as I have seen shapeshift into reptilians. I have not seen Hillary Clinton actually shapeshift, but she is involved. I have seen the two sons when they were young, the two sons of George Bush present at these rituals.
Are these the sons that have become governors?
Yes. One is in Florida and one is in Texas. I have seen, did I mention J. Rockefeller? And he shapeshifts. I've seen George Deukmejian and Ronald Reagan again, having been governor in California. There have been people such as Newt Gingrich. I saw, and I didn't know at the time that he was Newt Gingrich. I recognized that he was Newt Gingrich when Clinton came into power, and after he was, Newt Gingrich was then elected Speaker of the House. And I was horrified to realize that this man was also there. All of this has affected me to the point I don't vote. All of these people seem to all be connected to the Illuminati, and I don't feel like being part of having anything to do with them.
Presidents like Carter and Ford and Clinton.
I've seen Ford there.
Gerald Ford.
Gerald Ford, yes.
Are they all reptilian bloodlines?
I haven't seen Carter shapeshift.
You've seen him at rituals, have you?
Yes. Gerald Ford, I have seen shapeshift. And Johnson also.
Lyndon Johnson.
Lyndon Johnson. Also, Dr. Joseph Mengele, who took me around to these rituals a lot of the time, was also a shapeshifter. And there were also people that there are people in the European countries that I've seen shapeshift and be involved. And this it doesn't surprise me any more than it does the people in this country doing it. Is just for some reason more shocking, and it cuts even deeper, because I've seen the Queen Mother there, and I have seen the Queen there. I've seen Princess Margaret there. I've seen Charles there, and they shapeshift. And I have seen I'm not coming up with his name right now, but he was president in France after de Gaulle. He was there. I've seen him there. I've seen the Rothschilds there. I used to see the Rothschild that lived in England there, but the one that still goes there and is a shapeshifter, Guy de Rothschild, Baron Guy de Rothschild, has been to all of these rituals and has been over in this country under the name of Dr. Barrington and tried to program me and has impregnated me several times with eggs that were taken from me years ago and were impregnated with semen from Pindar and then placed back into my uterus. This has happened to me twice, once at age 39 and this year right before I turned 43. And I had told my therapist ahead of time before I ever could have known that this had been done to me. And it's happened at a certain place in where I have been living in the San Fernando Valley. It's happened at a house on Tyrone Street in Sherman Oaks. And my understanding is that there have been other survivors that have talked about this location as having been involved with programming and so on. And the Baron Guy de Rothschild has tried to program me. All these years he has been trying to control me, get me back under control. And the Marquis de Libero is someone else that attends all of these functions and since he is the one in power, he attends all these functions. I have seen Tony Blair there, and he shapeshifts. I have seen Prince Philip there. They all have their quirks as to how they act, even in their reptilian form. And they all, they act. They don't act all like robots, but they have their quirks. They have their so-called personalities, but they are all cold-blooded. They would kill at the drop of a hat. I have even, since I've seen a picture of some people that are talking about this subject, I've seen them, when I've seen their pictures, I recognize them. I did a double take a few weeks ago when I saw again someone who's been talking about around this subject, and it seems to be popular right now.
Who's that?
This man by the last name of Sitchin. I've seen at rituals, and he is a shapeshifter. And I did a double take when I saw the picture of him, because I recognize him. And there's another person that I've seen, this Gardner, Sir Gardner.
That Lawrence Gardner?
Sir Lawrence Gardner. And he had recently written an article that was out in Nexus magazine. Part of it was about the menstrual blood, and what really triggered me was when he called it Starfire, because that is the name of one of the aspects of the three women who are the dressed mother goddess. That is my name in in all of this. So this man I have seen, he has lots of power within this sect of reptilians, and he's someone that you would want to watch out for outside of this too, as is this Sitchin person.
What do you remember about Zachariah Sitchin?
Zachariah Sitchin was someone in the rituals attending the rituals who was not a major player in as far as the rituals went, but was someone that others present did not make remarks at, or were very careful as to what they said around him. And he was talking about, he would be talking about doing away with people, persons that were in his way, or were putting out information that he didn't feel that he wanted put out. He is very much a disinformer, and that is his job, to disinform about what is going on with the Illuminati and with the reptilians.
He actually warned me off from investigating the reptilians, interestingly.
Even within a secret society, only a tiny few at the core of the core know the real story. And the real story is that these entities exist and that they are the force behind the scenes that is manipulating human affairs. You get to the real the bigger, more exclusive secret societies, you get to people like the Jesuits and Opus Dei and the Knights Templar and what I call Rothschild Zionism, which at its core is a secret society controlled by the Rothschilds. All the rest is detail and cover. And you will have a lot more understanding, and at the core, total understanding of what the real force behind this is. So the secret societies are to keep compartmentalized from the public the real story. So then we come to Satanism. Well, what is Satanism? Satanism is worship of these entities. You know, and it's when they do human sacrifices, these entities outside of visible light, but connecting into on the electromagnetic field level, they are stealing and feeding off the energy of terror that that is released in these rituals. They are systematically done and built up and built up and built up. This is why today these people are doing the same rituals they did in Babylon and the ancient world, because there's a certain sequence that creates a certain outcome. And what they want in the victim is absolute terror. And the entities are feeding off that energy on an electromagnetic level as it comes, as it's generated by the terror. And also, that terror puts an adrenaline, a particular adrenaline in the blood, and that's what the Satanists within visible light, within the ritual, actually are drinking. And this connects us into pedophilia. The energy, these entities are feeding off human energy. When Morpheus in the Matrix symbolically held up the battery and said that the machines have turned humans into one of these, that was a profound truth in terms of what's really happening. They feed off our energy. Now, everything has a frequency. And if you have a frequency yourself, a frequency range, you can only absorb energy in that frequency range. Otherwise, it passes through you. Never the twain shall meet, just like radio stations can share the same space but not interfere with each other. And their frequency range resonates to the same frequency range as what I call low vibrational human emotion: fear, anxiety, hatred, terror. All these things are within that frequency range. So the more that humans can be manipulated to generate fear, anxiety, my goodness me, how many excuses are we given for it? The more energy they are absorbing. But this brings us round to pedophilia, which also connects into the same thing. Because the energy these entities want more than anything else is the energy of children before puberty. You know, we see puberty as a hormonal change, and in this visible light holographic realm, it is. But actually, the hormonal change is just a visible light level expression of a vibrational information change going on at the deeper energetic levels of the child. And they want the child's energy before that change takes place. It's a particular purity to them. And thus, when we look back into history and we see this common theme of sacrificing young virgins to the gods, young virgins was simply code for children, and the gods was code for these entities operating outside of visible light and our ability to see them, though they can enter briefly, and that's when some people have some strange experiences. And so what's happening is that the pedophiles are possessed people. They're possessed at the electromagnetic level, and what is stimulated within them, and in some of these bloodlines is absolutely genetic as well, is an obsession and an addiction to sex with children. Why? Because when the person is having sex with the child, the entity, the possessing entity, is using the pedophile as merely a conduit to draw off that child's energy, to draw off that child's life force. And therefore, wherever you find the possessed bloodlines of these hybrid bloodline networks that are representatives of these entities with invisible light, you will find pedophiles galore, you will find Satanists galore, and you will find initiates of secret societies galore, normally all three, certainly with the top ones. And this is where it comes from. This is why it is, why the ratio of Satanists to the so-called upper levels of society and power is vastly greater than it is in the general population. And therefore, wherever I have researched, anywhere in the world, people in real positions of power, I have found them almost always, without almost exception, to be members of very significant secret societies, to be great numbers of them pedophiles, and great numbers of them to be Satanists. And, you know, these people that run Satanism, they're not guys from the street. There was a guy called David Berkowitz, the son of Sam Killer in New York, who, when he went to jail for it, started a series of correspondence with a Christian minister, in which he held his hand up and said, yes, I did it, but I was a front for a satanic coven cult. And he said in one of his letters, Satanists are peculiar people. They aren't ignorant peasants or semi-literate natives. Rather, their ranks are filled with doctors, lawyers, businessmen, and basically highly responsible citizens. They are not a careless group or are apt to make mistakes, but they are secretive and bonded together by a common need and desire to mete out havoc on society. It was Aleister Crowley who said, I want blasphemy, murder, rape, revolution, anything bad. What comes from blasphemy, murder, rape, revolution, anything bad. Low vibrational human energy, which these entities can feed off. This is why society has been structured to generate that energy all the time. A war, imagine a war. And the energy, the low vibrational energy that is generated from pepper bombing a city of civilians or a world war. And there was a Swiss banker who last year told a Russian magazine, a magazine called Noviden, he was talking about Satanists in banking. And he said, these people are corrupt, sick in their minds, so sick they are full of vices, and those vices are kept under wraps on their orders. Many are into Satanism. When you go to some banks, you see these satanistic symbols, like in the Rothschild Bank in Zurich. These people are controlled by blackmail because of the weaknesses they have. They have to follow orders, or they will be exposed, they will be destroyed, even killed. So if we take... and so much more comes from this, which I'll go into in Wembley to explain the world that we're living in and why they do what they do. But if we take this situation that Alex mentioned earlier about this story in Britain relating to a man called Jimmy Savile. For people around the world who will not have come across him, Jimmy Savile was said to be a national treasure in Britain. He was one of the first people in the late 50s, very much more into the 60s, who became one of this new genre in entertainment called a disc jockey. And he, you know, in the swinging 60s in Britain, he would play the records, he would be on the television and the radio and all the rest of it. And then he became well known for working for charities and running marathons for charity and working as a porter voluntarily in hospitals and raising money for other hospitals. And then he died in 2011, given a hero's kind of funeral and all the rest of it. And then a few weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, pretty much out of the blue, really, independent television in Britain produced a documentary in which they talked to a series of women who had been sexually abused by Savile when they were underage years ago. And what this did was trigger a massive number of other people to come forward, because at last they thought, oh, someone's going to believe me now at last. And they've come forward, and the police have said they've got something like 340 leads on this whole affair the last time I saw it. Well, I can tell them this, because I knew about Savile back in the late 1990s. They can double a number, triple it, multiply it, or whatever they like, before they've got anywhere near the number of victims of this guy. How I came across it was in the late 1990s, I went to a meeting of a few people at the House of Lords in London, the Houses of Parliament. A bit strange to be invited there. Anyway, we were in this little room, and there was 2 or 3 members of the House of Lords there and 1 or 2 other people. And I thought, what am I doing here? Anyway, people started discussing things. And there was a lady there that kept saying some very interesting things about Princess Diana. This is not long after she was killed in Paris. We're talking probably late 1997, maybe into 98. And at the end of this little meeting, I said to this lady, that's very interesting what you're saying about Diana. How do you know that? And she told me that she had a friend who had been a close friend, and he acknowledged as such, I found out later in the media, as a close friend, for 9 years before they fell out. And this lady at the House of Lords, who was not connected to the House of Lords, she was just a person that was there for that meeting. She said, I think she'll talk to you. So a few weeks later, she arrives, both of them arrive on this island where I live, and I talked to this lady that she brought to see me at length, got it all down on tape, and talked to her again at another point. And what she was telling me was the horrors that Diana went through when she was pulled into the royal family for no other reason than genetics, to produce the heir in because the reason that these royal and aristocratic and major dark suit bloodlines are obsessed with genetics is because they're trying to hold, by interbreeding with each other, this hybrid genetic structure of these hybrids that are representing these entities with invisible light. If they start breeding outside of this hybrid network, then that hybrid nature is diluted very quickly. This is where interbreeding between royal families and interbreeding between banking families and all that stuff actually comes from, the blue bloods. And anyway, they wanted the Spencer genes from Diana and the Windsor genes to come together for various reasons, which they've got with this guy, Prince William. Anyway, she told me about all this, and then she started telling me about the pedophilia that went on, and Lord Mountbatten's connection to many things. This guy that was killed apparently by the IRA in his boat. I would fundamentally dispute that for my own information. But anyway, this whole cesspit that we call the British royal family was revealed before me in detail. And then, out of nowhere, this is about 98, she mentions this guy, Jimmy Savile, who was just a kind of disc jockey, and how close he was to the royal family, how Diana couldn't stand it, and how he was so close to them. And, you know, the obvious question was, why are the royal family close to this bloke? And then I was told not only about Savile and pedophilia, I was told about his necrophilia, his addiction to sex with dead bodies. And this suddenly, whoa, here we go. Why does this guy volunteer as a porter in hospitals? Well, they have mortuaries, that's why. And it's now, as a result of this television program, it's coming out that Savile actually was into his charities to get access to children. Well, it's something else. He was in the hospitals to get access to dead people. And these people, these bloodlines are beyond anyone's normal imagination of sick, I can't tell you. Think of sick and treble it, and you might just have started on the road, but you're nowhere near yet.
Absolutely. David Icke is with us for another 30 minutes, maybe longer. He's getting ready for his historical event there in England coming up the 27th, a huge event that's also going to be streamed worldwide. We're going to talk more about that before he goes. But while you've been sitting here, folks, watching, you know, David Icke sit here and speak from England, we have been putting up articles backing up what he's been saying, showing the Rothschilds with giant devil necklaces, showing Jimmy Savile, who is the archetypal pedophile, crazy pervert look. And then he looks just like Jerry Sandusky, this same twisted goblin-like, but also a feat. It's not really feminine, that insults women. And then when I've been at CPS hearings battling for families, I've seen the judges when the mother cries and they've done nothing and they're handing the children over to, you know, perverts. I've seen them feed demonically. That's how I described it 15 years ago, back when I didn't even understand a lot of the stuff David Icke talks about and thought he was out in left field. I would describe it as vampiric feeding, the pain, the tasering, the death, telling us torture's good on the news, telling us secret arrest. The Army's own report admitting the Army was ordered to hire jail guards who'd been fired and that they would then rape the children in front of their parents. I mean, this is what came out. This is what went on in Abu Ghraib with battery acid. I can't even say it on air. They would take large objects, put acid on it, and then torture 3-, and 4-, and 5-year-old children. And then, of course, the videos were swapped around Congress. They called it an investigation, and Bush reportedly would spend quite a bit of time. It came out the White House had files of the torture. And so they're just mainlining this. And it's true. I mean, whether it is entities or not, they might as well be demons. The 3- and 4-dimensional electrochemical map the brain is creating, well, I mean, you know, that is a demonic entity one way or another. These are demons. And then I remember you talking about this. You've gone and had rallies in London. You've gone to Scotland. You've gone to other areas where they're arresting people that are exposing this. And, I mean, it's come out in every city, in every major town, because they're not all powerful, that, you know, little kids dead in dungeons, you know, all over Europe, prostitutes being found dead in dungeons. It comes out and nobody gets in trouble. The Texas Youth Commission was caught literally, quote, with police and judges and bankers pulling up to the CPS facilities. The Texas Rangers tried to stop them. They shut them down and even removed the head of the DPS because he wasn't going along with them a few years ago. And then they had the commission people come in that basically looked like a bunch of Jimmy Saviles and just whitewash it, and no one got in trouble. And it was gladiatorial battles with, you know, 10 and 12 and 13-year-old kids. In some cases, they were dying. It was mass raping. It was judges going and saying, I want this one, I want that one out of the cells. And I've literally sat there and walked into a hospital room where a mother has just had a child, and the cop was choking the woman, making her sign papers, and it totally blew me away. Mike Hansen saw this as well. I mean, and the average person doesn't know, or when they come and get you, I'm now ranting here, when they come for you, your neighbor's not going to care and is just going to stand down, well, that's the authorities. And it's a worldwide network. Every culture gets taken over by them. I don't care if it was ancient Asian cultures, Mesoamerican, Babylonian, Roman. The Greeks had human sacrifice, you know, throwing babies into and virgins in, that means young women, into the volcano god on the Big Island in Hawaii. Every culture sacrifices children. And the Druids, all of them, and we have a child torturing, raping, murdering guild in control, and yes, demons are driving them, and people say, oh, David Icke, he's so kooky saying this. That's what every culture says. They're saying you're wrong, and they're so upset by you, David, because you are obviously onto something. But, I mean, I know off record you talked about this, and you talked about People Entertainment and people at BBC are pedophiles. You know, and you've had rallies exposing it, and now it's all coming out, and it's in the news that this guy hung out with the royals. And let's put his image up. I mean, talk about a demon. And then I'll put back up Jerry Sandusky with his little fangs. David, just amazing. I mean, I've had my little rant there after 40 minutes sitting back and listening to you. Please comment on what I'm saying and where they're going. I mean, as you said, the whole world is designed, and it looks like it's upside down from those of us that have love and compassion and honor and duty and, you know, love good things. That's ugly to them. That's why the most popular art is dead babies. I see beautiful women all over Austin now with zombie dead baby tattoos as the coolest thing. And the New York Times admits that the most popular art for 2 decades running with the rich stockbrokers and bankers is, you know, $35 million for a crystal skull with semen all over it. I hate to say things like this. Or Schwarzenegger goes to Germany and buys photos of dead babies and little girls dressed up in Nazi outfits. We've actually shown these photos on air. And they were describing in one article how the rich buy this, and they say, well, it's an offering to something so beautiful. They're saying, we're putting a premium on a crucifix and a bucket of urine. We're putting a premium on cans of elephant dung. I mean, it's about worshiping the ugliness, David Icke.
Yes, it is. And when you look at what is said about these entities, they have no creative imagination. They do not have creativity. They're like robotic. And this stuff with transhumanism and putting technology into bodies to upgrade them, humans, is all about making us more like them.
It's about control.
Yeah, and also making us more like them by taking away what we have that they don't have, which is this creativity. I mean, all this stuff that is fed to children and adults in the food and the water is all suppressing creativity. Therefore, anything that is an expression of them, an expression of those that are possessed by them, will be, by definition, ugly. It's interesting too, Alex, you know, that I've been saying for years and years and years, way back into the 1990s, that these bloodlines drink the blood of children and vampire the energy of children because it rejuvenates them. And this is why so many of them live so long. It's also they get treatment we don't get in general population. But this is a big part of why some of these people, a lot of these people, live so long. I mean, look, Queen Mother, 102, Queen, currently 86, Prince Philip, currently 91, David Rockefeller, 97, Father George Bush, 88, Henry Kissinger, 89. And there's a story that I saw this very day where researchers are saying that in experiments on mice, they found that older mice are rejuvenated by being infused with blood from young mice.
Vampires, vampire mice.
Yeah, so that what they're doing, and now so many things have happened actually in the last 10 days.
By the way, I put a photo of Jimmy Savile on. He literally looks like Emperor Palpatine. He is the textbook demon Nosferatu goblin creature.
Yeah. So what they're saying here is absolutely right. They don't realize the significance of it. But if you do, these people do drink the blood of children, and it reinvigorates them. It gives them the life force of youth, which gives them longer lives. But you mentioned Savile there, and there's a big important point here, Alex. What is happening at the moment in Britain, and it's all in the media. I mean, it's everywhere here, Jimmy Savile, and all the stuff coming out. But it's basically being held at the level that here was a stunningly widespread pedophile over decades and all over the country. And it's being kept to overwhelmingly to the fact he's a famous pedophile that's been exposed. The bigger story behind that is not being focused on, although I'm doing my best to get it out there. And that is that he was a procurer of children for rich and famous people.
So was Sandusky. That's now being confirmed. I mean, and again, he ran a giant program helping at-risk kids. That's kids they'd already drugged up and stuff. Now they're saying in our news they want to drug all children with Ritalin and Prozac. They're going to improve us. And it shows kids with huge zombie eyes, you know, huge black circles saying this is wonderful. And let's institutionalize everyone. Let's just, I mean, it's just, oh, and let's have weirdos like Sandusky ruling over us. I mean, you can look at Sandusky. You can look at Savile. Their bodies are manifesting the demonic entity, the parasite entity that's literally attached to their cerebellum.
Yeah, the thing is, anyone that's kind of new to this, or has been, even those been following the whole conspiracy thing for a long time, when we appreciate this situation that we've been talking about, then we can appreciate the two things. One, that these are the mentalities that are put in positions of power in the agencies, be it the EPA, the Agriculture Department, Food and Drug Administration, in the TSA, and all these agencies of government and government itself, and in the military, and in all these institutions of control. These are the mentalities that are put there. And now when you see what they actually get up to outside of the public eye, this is why they have no compassion for the consequences for children and innocent people of the drone bombing in Pakistan and elsewhere, of pepper bombing Baghdad and Tripoli, of putting stuff in the food and drink that they know is gonna give people massive health problems, of putting people away for the rest of their lives for crimes they didn't commit just to cover up the people that did commit them. They have no compassion. They have no empathy. This is what we're dealing with, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to grow up fast and realize that, because we're not dealing with even greedy humans. We're not even dealing with unpleasant humans. We are dealing with pure, undiluted evil that has no compassion, has no empathy.
By the way, look at the royal family. Look at Savile. Look at all of them. They all dress in black and red and like big crest and things. And then I remember Fritz Springmeier was one of the first to talk about it, and then I saw it in the news, and then, of course, you've talked about it, and now it's just admitted that Prince Charles hangs out most of the time now in Transylvania and literally creeps around in the forest in Dracul castles, and they admit, oh, we're not even German. We're really Dracul, which is even an older line out of the East.
Where do the rituals take place that you've been involved in, involving the British royal family?
Glamis Castle, Stonehenge, Balmoral Castle. I have reason to believe there's a church, and I think it may be Westminster Abbey, and there is a Mothers of Darkness castle or chateau in Brussels, Belgium. They've been there too. And also in France, the Marquis de Libero Pindar has a castle in the Alsace-Lorraine region of France. And I believe it's in the Alsace region that he uses. And there are certain rituals done at that castle down in the dungeon part of that castle, and there's an entrance down there to underground places in the earth. And there is a natural formation of rocks that kind of glow green, and they keep menstrual blood in that formation, and this green glowing from these rocks actually turns the blood a darker color, and it's called black blood, and it's used in certain rituals. But there are also, they keep small, there are smaller, less developed little reptilians that are kept down there. They're kind of pets. But one other thing that's also down there, there are eggs. It's like a nest of eggs kept down in that part where it's warm. It's very warm down there into this entrance, and these eggs are kept down there incubating, and they are the reptiles' eggs, and that's where they keep them.
What are your memories of conducting the rituals for the royal family? What happened? What were they doing?
One thing that sticks out in my mind is that there was, before, this was back in the late 70s. This was before Charles was married to Diana. He was involved with Kamala Parker Bowles, and she does not shapeshift, but she became pregnant by Charles, and she produced a baby, and this baby was presented at the ritual and killed, and that is the price, the firstborn between these two, and eventually these two will marry, and that is the price that is to be paid, the sacrifice of the firstborn between a union of these two people. And I've seen that there. Something else that sticks out in my mind is that it was around the late 80s that I saw a very kind of dark man that that he was Arabic. It seemed to be Arabic or Egyptian, and I heard the name Fayed being mentioned, and the Queen Mother was there, and I called her the Black Queen, and she and he were talking very seriously and at some length about a subject. They were mentioning Diana, and they were mentioning his son, Dodi. And at the time, I didn't know who Dodi was. I knew who Diana was. I never saw her at any rituals.
Where did this conversation take place?
This took place at Balmoral Castle. And I heard them talking about a marriage between these two, and I thought at the time, well, she's married to Charles. How can there be a marriage where she's married to Charles? I didn't understand why the Queen Mother and this person that I now know to be Dodi Fayed's, because I heard Fayed, Muhammad al-Fayed, talking, and I'd seen them together at, I saw them at Balmoral Castle. I overheard the conversation at Balmoral, but I'd seen them also at Mothers of Darkness Chateau in Brussels, and they were talking about a union between Diana and his son Dodi back in the late 80s, and I did not understand at that time, because I understood Diana to be married to Charles. I knew that she was married to Charles, and they had 2 children, and they were about to have another. And the Queen Mother, all I could pick up was that for some reason that there was a malevolence towards Diana, and Diana I had never seen at a ritual. I wondered what she knew about all of this.
What have you seen the royal family do, the Queen Mother, and the other people you've seen in the rituals? What have you seen them do?
I've seen all of them drink human blood and consume human flesh, and they have their own goblets in which they have blood, and these goblets are encrusted with jewels, and they also have their own daggers, and that the dagger goes into the goblet, and they stir the blood around with it, and it's also a what it is, it's a symbol of the phallus going into the vagina, and when they're doing this, and I've seen them do this, and some of them have even, like the Queen Mother I saw with, she had her own little, it would, like almost, it's between a very elaborate ornate chair or a throne kind of thing brought in for her to sit. And because before these rituals actually start, there is a kind of people move around the room and talk, or recognize one another. It's a formal kind of a ritualistic setup, the way they talk and the way they introduce each other. It's like a court.
What are they wearing?
They're wearing robes. They're not wearing anything underneath the robes. and the robes are very ornate. They all have, the one thing in common they have is they have a red color like blood, and some of them have purple, and they have gold kinds of lines running through them. They have the Merovingian symbol of France, the fleur-de-lis, and there are jewels that are sewn in at certain points on these robes, and they wear these robes, but they don't wear anything underneath the robes, because what is going to happen, what the rituals are all about, they're going to shapeshift, and they can't have anything on under the robes. And there are orgy kind of things that go on at the rituals also. And
involving the royal family of Britain?
Yes, involving the royal family of Britain, and the sacrifice and the eating of, consuming the sacrifice, and they are involved in that.
And you've seen them do that?
Yes, I have seen them do that.
People in Britain, listening to what you're saying, would obviously be staggered, I guess anywhere in the world, but what would stagger them mostly is, in Britain, the Queen Mother has an image of being the nation's grandmother. The nice old lady, and good old Queen Mum, what a lovely lady. What's your experience of the Queen Mother?
She is very cold in reality, and she is very cruel, and she is very different than she comes across to the public. She's cold-blooded. If she feels that you are someone beneath her, even in the Illuminati, that you're at her equal or your station is above her, she will not speak to you, she will not recognize you. She obviously, from what I see, enjoys consuming human flesh. It's sickening. The one person that she seems to be afraid of is Pindar.
People would also look at the Queen Mother's elderly, frail stature and find it very difficult to see her taking part in rituals and doing anything, if you like, active. Do they go into a different state in terms of age and strength and all these other attributes when they actually shapeshift?
Yes, the human body that they choose to occupy or take when it was young, it ages, but when they take the reptilian form, these reptilians live hundreds of years, and so they have to have taken more than one human body to live in. A lot of them are much, much older, and I'm including the Queen Mother in this, older than people think that she is. She's been in more than one body, human form. And when the time comes, if it is time for her to go on, and it has been chosen that she still has, it's known that she still has life or years to go, again, she will be put into the body, the essence of her, and the reptilian form will go, or the essence of her will go into another body that is also has the ability to shapeshift into reptilian form.
One of the pure reptilian human bloodlines.
Yes.
What happens when, take the Queen Mother as an example, what happens when they shapeshift? I mean, what do you see?
You start to see changes happen, and they're happening so fast. that it's almost, it's the closest thing that I've seen to it is what they're now doing with computer technology. It's just a literal transformation that happens very quickly, and they get taller and they get bigger, and they don't look at all as reptilians like they do as humans, and thus the wearing of the robes, because if they were in clothes, the clothes would be torn apart.
So let's take the Queen Mother on this subject as an example. We recognize her as a frail old lady. What does she look like when she shapeshifts at these rituals?
She has, she looks like, the nose portion gets very much longer, and it grows into kind of a snout kind of thing. She has little fangs, and incisors as teeth, and there's a tongue. And they all seem to have this kind of tongue when they're at this level. The tongue has a lot of long, hairy or pointed projections coming out of it. It's very long, and they have these. They don't have hands or feet. They have these claws, and they have scales, and also scales that seem to kind of disappear into one another. But it's more pronounced on the back. There seem to be lumps or protrusions coming from the head. There seem to be some kind of growth appendages at where, on the back, and they seem folded, and not all of them have that. And there is a tail, and they a lot of times will keep the tail curled. And and I've seen her when she's very displeased with something, as I've seen other members like this. This tail is whipped around, very agitated, and they do, and she hisses.
What color are they?
Which one in particular?
Take the Queen Mother as an example.
She's kind of a beige color on the underside, and by the time you're going up around to the back and the tail and the top of the head and on top of the nose, snout, whatever, it's coming to a very they're dark speckles or large speckles of dark browns, and the eyes usually they're large. They look like they're very round, and they look like they're coming out of their sockets, and very protruding, and usually the color ranges from a beige to a gold to a dark greenish gold, and then there's this dark slit up and down, a vertical slit, and and the eyes will look hooded, and when they look hooded, it's a very frightening thing, because it seems that when the eyes are hooded, they're about to do something.
What do you mean by hooded?
The lids come down, and it's almost, I guess it would be the same thing in a human as an expression of someone's got an idea.
And how tall are they when they shapeshift?
They're just about 7 feet tall. Some are a little shorter, or to a foot shorter. Some are a little bit taller than 7 feet.
So what would the Queen and Prince Charles look like in their reptilian form?
As to height?
As to general appearance?
Charles resembles in both ways, in human form and in reptilian. He resembles Pindar. He's shorter, though, in reptilian form than Pindar, but the way that the reptilian, the nose shapes into the snout at that point, and the jaw becomes the underpart. It's very much like Pindar, and his mother doesn't look quite the same as he does.
What does the Queen look like?
The Queen, she's darker, not quite so pale. She's darker all over. She doesn't have the amount of I would call it freckling. It's more like a gradual, like the skin is gradually getting darker. It's more smooth. And she does have the lumps up on around her head and down the tail, the spine. Charles has the tails down around the spine, and funny enough, he has the protrusions from the skull in the reptilian form, where about or above, right above where it seems like his ears would have been.
What is it about the rituals that allow the shape-shifting to happen?
When the victims are starting to be sacrificed, it's the scent of the blood, and they start shape-shifting at that point in time, and they can hardly wait to get to the blood. It's like they're addicted to the blood, and then the consumption of human flesh that follows.
What have you seen the Queen or any of the royal family do in relation to that? Have you seen them sacrifice and consume human flesh?
There are certain times when they will actually do a sacrifice, or there will have been someone doing a sacrifice, and it's not happening fast enough for them. So they will step in and finish it themselves, because the sacrifice the ritual has to be gone through. It's sacrificially, ritualistically, it has to have been gone through, and they will step right in and just start tearing the throat out, and they're getting all this blood from the jugular vein at the same time, and that has happened when there are many there that are going to be sacrificed, and they just can't wait, and tearing into the contents of the abdomen and stomach of a victim afterwards.
Who have you seen do that?
I've seen the Queen Mother do that, and Prince Philip and Charles. I've seen Guy de Rothschild do this. It seems that I've seen it more among royalty, or so-called royalty, do this than people that are not titled. That they don't seem to. They seem like it feels like they don't dare, but they shapeshift nonetheless. But it's like the royals that step in and just start tearing away, as they can hardly wait.
How long can they hold the reptilian form in these occasions?
During the rituals, it's much easier for them to hold their reptilian form. They can stay in that form. What it is that they have a hard time holding their human form. And as long as they're around blood and the scent of blood, they can't hold human form.
Right. Where do you think the story of Diana fits into all this? In terms of the ritual that you know about and the royal family background that you know about. What was all that about? What happened in Paris?
Diana was a ritual sacrifice because she's named after a goddess, Diana. She was chosen from before birth for the purpose of which she served. I understand and very well and am very empathetic towards Diana, because in a way it parallels what happened to me, to have served your purpose, had 2 children, and then be tossed aside. And to her horror, though, she obviously never attending a ritual, she knew something was happening. And she knew what was going on and could not be trusted to be at a ritual anyways. I don't think that Diana would have attended a ritual. I don't think that they could get her to cooperate in this because she actually saw for herself that this was going on after she married Charles.
Was there any way, when Diana was married to Charles, without attending a blood ritual, that she could have seen him or one of the others become a reptile?
They have a tendency when they're asleep to shapeshift, and they have to consciously hold their form, and when they're asleep, they have a tendency to not hold human form and to shapeshift into reptilians. And there could be other things that happen. I'm thinking about the times that Diana would have gone through a menstrual period. Well, that would have also really triggered some of these people in the royal family that are reptilian around her to want to shapeshift, or any woman, any human woman in that household that would be having a period, that scent of blood would tend to cause a momentary shapeshift.
What was the whole, what appears to be a ceremony surrounding her assassination? What was that about? The rumours that she was pregnant, the Egyptian Dodi Fayed, and the place where it all happened, which is an ancient sacrificial site to the goddess Diana. How does all that fit together in the rituals that you know about?
Okay, the crown aspect of the goddess is Hecate, and the day of Hecate is on August 13th. And what is very prevalent in this with the Illuminati and what they've done with the Druidism and other and Egypt, the Egyptian religions, is they like to mirror the numbers. And so as like, for example, with the goddess Isis, her number is 18. When you mirror it, it's 81, and that is the number of the sister of Isis, Nephthys. And Nephthys was considered the evil sister to Isis. With Hecate, what I think happened here is that she was sacrificed, and it was a very important sacrifice because 3 people died, and it was a picture of the triad of Isis, Osiris, and Horus to them. Horus being the unborn child of Dodi Fayed that Diana carried, and was 3 months old, which is another very important fact, a number that's important to them, to be 3 months old. Sacrificial babies are taken in utero at 3, 5, and 7 months. And when I heard about this was a deal that I understood now had gone down. And she had to die in that tunnel because that tunnel's the passageway for Diana, the goddess. And she died at the 13th pillar again because of Hecate. And she died on the 31st because it's the mirror image of 13. And my understanding of what I get inside of me, and because I was told by Baron Guy de Rothschild last beginning of February, when he was in this country and he was there to try and reprogram me again and impregnate me, was that he was in the tunnel that night. He had to be there because not only was it a ritual death of Diana, this was also about taking her soul, and he was taking the soul of Diana, which no one else there could do. Whoever was present there could not do it. He could do it, and he was in France.
This is the hypnotic stare you talk about.
Yes, and drawing in the breath. And he had to be there to do this ritual killing, this ritual murder.
This would mean that the ambulance team and a doctor that arrived within a minute of the crash coming the other way must have been in on this whole deal, or at least the people in charge of the ambulance team. From your experience of the kind of people involved in this Illuminati satanic network, do you think that's possible, that they could set that up?
Yes, I do. I've seen a lot of things set up that if you did not know, if you weren't in on the so-called inner circle, or know what the Illuminati can do, because they depend on people not believing they're really there, you would not, you would have a hard time believing it.
We'll just come back, if I ask Mike just to put Mr. Straw back up on the screen, because I'm just going to read that little last bit of that quote again. So Mr. Straw, he made it illegal for any children currently in care to speak out, even if they feel they're being maltreated. So against the background of what you're telling us about harrowing information about what's happening for children, this man is saying...
Sorry, where was that quote from?
Actually, it was from a newspaper, The Independent, yeah. But they wrote an article in which, they were quite outspoken in saying this is incredible.
It's like you say, that's what Jack Straw says. It would also be illegal for any children currently in care to speak out, even if they feel they are being maltreated.
Now, you have got audio of Mr. Straw being asked about this, haven't you?
I think the film footage speaks for itself, Brian.
Well, if Mike can manage its movie clip 3, I think.
Yesterday, I was in the cab. I picked up a film.
Was this a proper one?
A proper cab, yeah. I was in my cab working, and I had a guy in the cab, and he's a very independent, Phil Maloney's name. He makes little independent films and stuff. And I didn't realise he's working on one now about child abuse, and I didn't realise, he said to me to say to you, why in 2009 you made it illegal or for any children in care to speak out about being ill-treated. Did you do that, Jack?
No.
He said that was something to do with you, and I said, I've got you He said, oh, Jack Straw, he made it
I
illegal.
mean, I grant this.
Children in care to speak out. I said, well, I'll ask him that tomorrow.
One gets involved in so much that occasionally you have memory lapse, but I think I remember that. So I don't remember. I mean, it's not. I mean, amongst other things, it's not my area of responsibility. I mean, actually, I don't know where it's coming from, because one of the things I've been doing is to try and open up the family courts where a lot of these issues get argued about, and so that people, the press would not be able to report the names of the kids or therefore their parents, but they would be able to say, well, this is a really odd decision. And I've had, frankly, a very big fight with some of the people in the family courts and the children's organisations who want family justice, so-called, to remain a secret garden. So you can say to him that I don't know what he's talking about, but
Well, I think what we missed at the beginning of the clip was the explanation. What the audience don't realise is that guy, the black cab driver who Jack Straw blatantly lied to, was a friend of mine, and he was given the job because he does acting as well, and I trained him as an actor, the cab driver, and one day the Sun went to him because they was looking for someone who could pick up, I think it was the last election, they could pick up politicians and they'd talk in the cab, and then the Sun would put it up on their site, know what I mean, and people could see it. So Jack Straw blatantly lied there. So that is what happened, and he didn't expect that, but you can see how easily the man lies. He is an outrageous liar, and I think that Jack Straw should be behind bars.
Well, okay, so we're saying to the audience today, just think about, we're not providing the absolute answer to this thing, but we're asking the question.
Well, we haven't got time.
Well, we can have another go, I hope.
Yeah.
We're going to say, what is this man trying to achieve by stopping children speaking out? Is the agenda from running secret family courts, and they are secret, there's no jury, there's no press. We've even got a mother who's had her 2 boys taken away from her, who is now not allowed to even mention the names of her 2 boys. She can only show them by holding up her wrists, because she's got the names of the 2 children on her wrists. So it seems if you apply common sense, which is a pretty reasonable thing to do, if you apply common sense, surely we must be saying that the only reason you would want to stop children speaking out if they claim or allege they're being abused is to cover up what's going on.
Is to cover up the evidence and not to put the perpetrators, the institutional perpetrators, into the dock where they should be. And these sentences, the tariff has got to go up.
But of course we haven't got clean courts at the moment, because we also know.
I don't believe we've ever had a clean court.
Absolutely, we've certainly got judges who have themselves been put in prison for being paedophiles or abuse or sexual abuse.
Not too many though.
Not too many. But if we have a look at another politician, and the lady concerned is Harriet Harman. Here she is. She's, of course, looking very clean and smart and upper middle class. Do you think? She's not quite upper class, I don't think.
Well, I don't know, Brian. I just think bitch.
Well, here is the woman. And if we dig back into her history, we find that when she was originally connected with the National Council for Civil Liberties, which is the forerunner of Liberty, the organisation, she was lobbying for the rules on pornographic photos of children to be relaxed. And if I show this in a bit more detail, here she is looking a little bit chubbier and younger, of course, and I'll just read what was going out. In NCCL's official response to the government's plans to reform sex laws, dubbed Lolita's Charter, it suggested reducing the age of consent and argued that childhood sexual experiences willingly engaged in with an adult result in no identifiable damage. It claimed that children can suffer more from having to retell their experiences in the court or the press. And then in an official NCCL response, which was signed by the then Miss Harman, that was a response to the Protection of Children Bill, it was claimed that the new law could lead to damaging and absurd prosecutions and increase censorship. She suggested that a pornographic photo or film of a child should not be considered indecent unless it could be shown that the subject had suffered and the prosecutors would have to prove harm rather than defendants having to justify themselves. And at the time that this lady made this remarkable statement...
Evil statement, Brian, I think. I
totally agree with you.
That is evil.
Absolutely. And we've got, well, okay, the images come off there, but at that time, the National Council for Civil Liberties was directly linked into an organisation called PI, the Paedophile Information Exchange, and it was also linked into PAL, Paedophile Action for Liberty. So we just ask a question here. We've got one, they happen to be Labour MPs, but we'll talk about that in a minute. We've got one Labour MP who's quietly bringing in a law so it's stopping children who are being abused speaking out. A classic example with that going on at the moment is Oxford and Cherwell Valley College, where none of the Oxfordshire Safeguarding Board have actually dealt with evidence of abuse within the college. So one man is denying children the opportunity of speaking out, and then here we've got a lady who is actually pushing to make it easier to take pornographic pictures of children.
Well, there you go. I mean, you know...
do they not think like ordinary people? What do you think is going on?
Well, what we have to do is, first of all, when you look at young offenders institutions, it is Her Majesty's Young Offenders Institution.
Right.
Prisons, Her Majesty's Prison, HMP. Now, Lancaster Prison, for example, was built purely to give money to the Crown. We've got Prince Andrew messing about with one of the most prolific child traffickers, richest anyway, i.e. Jeffrey Epstein. We have to start looking at these people.
And asking the questions.
And asking the questions. Why is Prince William being groomed to be king? I mean, Prince William... I'll tell you what he has had, the Order of the Garter. And his job, he went straight into the city and he was interested in money.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing. We have Charles, we have serious allegations against... I don't like calling them princes. I don't like princes.
Well, we're just going to play the game in this program.
Well, we're playing the game in this one. You know, the knighting of someone, Sir Jimmy Savile. I mean...
Why?
Yeah. Why? Kneeling. Well, I mean, this is a Christian society.
Well,
now, the Bible tells us you do not kneel or bow to anyone.
Or take an oath.
Or take an oath.
Yeah.
And then when we get this knighthood, the Queen owns the island of Jersey.
Right, so
we don't own it, Brian. The UK doesn't own the island of Jersey.
Okay.
The Queen, the Crown, owns the island of Jersey. Let's get that straight.
Right.
And she has taken no responsibility. All she's got to say, this is outrageous. She said something about Hamza, the guy, is it Hamza? Hamza, who's just sent to America. Yeah. She said, why is this evil man still here? Yeah? Why doesn't she say, why has all this evil stuff been going on the island that I own? She should be saying this to Phil. It's
a very good question.
What happened on our island, Phil? Don't you think we should speak up and say we don't know nothing about it, or we're going to get it sorted out?
Okay.
Nothing.
Absolutely, Bill. We've got 9 minutes, and there's a few things I think we ought to ram into the programme.
Yeah.
Just sticking on politicians and what it's about. Money you've mentioned. Now, a figure which I think you said to me last night was that to keep a child in one of these young offenders institutions, so it's being run by Serco, the biggest company you've never heard of, and I think you said £175,000 a year.
Right, well, that's Serco. But then you've got councils that have secure children's homes, £250,000. Per child per £250,000 per child per year. You can go and foster a child, Brian, okay? On the backs of buses now. We were talking about it this morning. Got a spare bedroom? Are you over 25? Why not foster a child?
Yeah, so children...
Not, have you got children? Have you got a family? Could you accept a child into your family? Have you got a spare bedroom? Are you over 25, want to foster a child?
Yeah.
So they will get up to 500, it starts at about 400 and something pound a week per child, nearly £500 per week. A lot more if the kid's got learning disabilities or any kind of incapacities about it, a lot more.
Yeah.
So this is big profit. And that is why the kids have not been put out for adoption, because the money is in the fostering.
Yeah. Well, we know even with the legal fees around family courts, we're talking about a minimum of £20 billion a year.
Crazy.
And if we tot up the sort of figures that Bill is talking about here, and please go away and audience, please go away and check this stuff yourself. We're also talking about tens of billions of pounds around. Children are big money.
Yeah.
Now,
could I just say one thing quickly?
Yeah.
That people say to me, Bill, why do you think these people are killing the children? Why are they burying them? You know, Lenny Harper's investigation, Lenny Harper's investigation. You must see, please watch Sun, Sea and Satan. If you don't watch any more of our work, just watch Sun, Sea and Satan. They say to me, why do you think these people are killing these children, Bill? Because today's victims are tomorrow's witnesses. You've got to get your heads round this. Today's victims are tomorrow's witnesses. If you've got a good life, but you killed a child, it's going to come back on you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
If you don't actually kill them.
Right, let's get in our remaining little film clip if we can. And this is where you had the opportunity to speak to Harriet Harman. To ask her a few questions.
Harriet Harman and Ed Balls, or is it just
it's Ed Balls as well, and also the union man whose name escapes me.
Dave Prentice.
Right. So
Dave Prentice.
We've just about got time to get this clip in.
Okay. Harriet, right, if I can just give you 1 minute.
Sorry,
we're talking about child abuse. We'd just like to talk to you about the cuts and how it's going to affect child abuse. Harriet, you don't want to talk about child abuse. I understand that, Harriet, but you're here to talk to people on the street, and we represent... So Harriet Harman doesn't want to talk to us about child abuse today.
She didn't say that.
Okay, at the moment she doesn't.
She didn't say
Well, that's what he said to me. I gave her a chance. Mind your own business. Let's go again.
Once you get met.
Let's go again. Chop.
This way.
You've got to get the face. Get the face. Harriet. That's common assault. You'll get arrested for that.
I'm a woman.
I know it's a woman's right.
Sorry.
Harriet, get on me. Harriet, I need to push you on this. Harriet, why won't you talk to us about child abuse, Harriet? You're part of the government. Don't touch me, because don't you just touch me. Right, so Harriet, Harriet is not willing to talk about child abuse. And how are the cuts going to affect child abuse? How are the cuts going to affect child abuse, Harriet? Harriet, how are the cuts? How are the cuts going to affect child abuse, Harriet?
I'm very sorry, she's talking to people who've come here from...
So Harriet's gone to the police officer here, and we do carry a press pass, and Harriet Harman does not today wish to talk to us about child abuse. Okay? Thank you very much. Thank you, officer. Right. That was Harriet Harman. She didn't want to talk to us about child abuse, and I think I know why. In 1978, when she became a solicitor, she urged the ministers to make it legal for people to be allowed to take sexually explicit images of children, and she wanted that to be made legal as long as the children in the images hadn't been harmed or abused. So that's Harriet Harman. Harriet Harman was in favour of making sexually explicit images of children, and she urged ministers to do that. So maybe that's why Harriet Harman didn't want to talk to us about child abuse. Thank you very much. It's Bill Maloney, and I represent a film company called Primass Films, and we're interested in what the cuts are going to do against child abuse and young offenders institutions.
Hey, mate, it's very important that we make...
I'll talk to Ed, not you. You're here to talk to people.
I'm just on the BBC.
Ed, I represent the lower working classes, and I'd like to know what you're going to do, and what your government... Let that girl alone. I want to know what you're going to do to help child abuse. And you've been talked about this before. What are you going to do about child abuse in our young offenders institutes? Bill, yeah, so you don't want to talk about it. Well, talk to me about it. Let go.
Joe, what are you going to do about institutional child abuse operating in this?
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, so they don't want to talk about this
No,
subject. They don't want to talk at all.
No, they don't.
Right, we've got a couple of minutes, just a couple of quick slides to put up. This one turns me cold. We now know what's been going on in the BBC, and this is the BBC a few years ago, where the BBC were advertising children for adoption. They had a magazine called Families Wanted. I have a copy of that magazine. You open it, children being advertised like puppies or iPods.
Yeah.
Where are these? Where have they come from? Have they been willingly given up? So that's one. The second one is that we know that the BBC is highly selective. It doesn't want to get involved with the Holly Gregg case. Down syndrome girl abused. The BBC doesn't want to get involved.
Once again, institutions.
Right, and here is Kevin Annett, a pastor who's been warning about the abuse of children in Canada, but with links back to Britain. He's now been banned from Britain.
And links to the Crown as well. Our Queen and Prince Philip going out to Canada and taking 10 children from the smart class of a school, and those kids never been seen again.
And then they're prancing around, hanging around. Look at Jimmy Savile. Put this image up of him with like some vampiric crest around his neck with red shades on, and then next to Sandusky. I mean, these are Nosferatu. These are undead. That is what they are. I've been around them. I've been at the CPS courts, and I'm a strong man fighting for these families, but I literally couldn't do it anymore because I was watching them suck the energy out of the crying families. The more innocent, the better. And when the cops drag a little kid away, they're feeding. And it's not the average cop. They have special pervert cops that have the same giggly pig faces, the little goblin faces of Sandusky and stuff. It's like a vicious hate, but also a weakness. You know what I'm talking about, David.
Yeah, the thing that you just mentioned, Prince Charles and Vlad Dracul and the family from whom Bram Stoker gleaned his Dracula.
Dracul.
Exactly, and it was all related to reptilian imagery, and they were members of an elite order going back to ancient Egypt, probably further, called the Order of the Dragon, its short name anyway. And this is a point I made earlier, if you remember, about I talked about entities possessing these pedophiles, and I also mentioned about the fact that in many cases it was genetic as well. The attraction, the desire for sex with children was genetic. Well, it is, because you see, these particular hybrid bloodlines have a different information field to the rest of the population. They're not the same. And thus it is absolutely in line with what I've been saying all these years, that the British royal family should be genetically related to the Dracos in Romania. I mean, you know, this is where it is. I mean, Mary of Teck, the grandmother of the present queen, was directly related to the sister, one of the Dracul sisters. And so... Wait
a minute. It came out even in the Daily Mail last year that just in the last 100 years, the royals were eating body parts of people, and they have the groom of the stool that saves in these underground things all of their excrement that is basically worshipped. I mean, that's what they built, giant palaces, under them people worshiping their crap.
If people, and they're going to, but if people, when people realize who the British royal family really are, who the Bush family really are, who the Rockefellers really are, who the Rothschilds really are, and all these people, they are going to be beyond shocked. But going on for the Savile story, the procurer of children part of his whole deal is very, very important, because around the media and people in general in Britain at the moment, they're saying, how come there were people reporting him to the police and nothing was done? How come that he worked at the BBC all those years, and people in management who were given rumours about him and what have you, and what he was doing on BBC premises, by the way, some of it, but he was left alone. It's because as he said in various newspaper interviews and television interviews over the years, I'm untouchable. I can do anything I want. nothing can stop me doing what I want. Why? Because these procurers of children, they go two ways. One, they procure children and they're safe. They're not going to talk out and reveal what's going on. They are left alone. The others, who they appear at some point to these people not to be safe, maybe this guy might blab, well, they disappear and they're no longer with us. But the Saviles know how to play the game. And he said in an interview with Esquire magazine, he was talking about the royal family and why he was so close to the royal family. And he said, the thing is, I get things done and I work deep cover. I've known the royal family for 1,000,000 years, he said. So once you've got these rings and you've got the procurer, then his back is the back of the rich and famous. So they put these people into the judiciary, into law enforcement, into media ownership, into banking, into government, and therefore everyone watches everyone's backs. And that's why Savile got away with it so long, not because he was just a paedophile, but because he was procuring people for children for these rich and famous people who were watching his back for him. And I mentioned another guy, Alex, in a book called The Biggest Secret. The first edition came out in 1998. And his name was Edward Heath. He was Prime Minister of Britain from 1970 to 74. And I named him in that book as a Satanist, a child killer, and a pedophile. This man was beyond... And
let me just stop you. I know we'd privately, talked about some of this, and I've read a lot of your books, but had you already named Savile before this came out?
I've named him to people I spoke to, yeah, absolutely. I've named him to a lot of people. Because
I remember once during a break we were talking, and you're like, Alex, this is real. I'm going to be protesting. I'm going from memory of like 3 or 4 years ago when you were protesting around the country. And he's like, the children's show people and this guy and that. And I remember you saying it, and I'm like, okay, well, don't say any names that aren't out yet because, they could sue us. But wow, I mean, I distinctly remember you talking about him. That blows me away.
I've been talking about him since I was told about it in 1998 to anyone that would listen. But of course it was like, Jimmy Savile, he would never do that. Please, here we go. But the point about Edward Heath, don't worry about him. He died in 2005. But I named him 7 years before he died.
No, you named it in the book, and he didn't even come after you.
He didn't. But what's interesting is the connections are now starting to be made between Jimmy Savile and Edward Heath because of Savile providing children for Edward Heath. And there's another connection, which is this children's home in the Channel Islands on Jersey, which is only 9 miles by 5, which came out a few years ago, and some genuine policemen were on the case, and they got kicked off because they were getting too close to the big names involved. Same with the genuine policeman that started off investigating the Mark Dutroux child murder and paedophile case in Belgium that was getting too close. They got rid of him as well. And this is the way it goes, you see. First of all, you've got these bloodlines that are addicted to sex with children for the reasons I've talked about. They then need procurers of children to provide an endless line of children for them, and the procurers need children. And this is why these networks invariably are always seeking and often succeed in hijacking and taking over children's homes all over the country and all over the world. Of course, the Boys Town in Nebraska is a classic example of a place where so much of this stuff has been reported to go on. Well, people like John W. DeCamp. But the situation in Jersey at the children's home, we had Heath and people like Louis Lord Mountbatten connected by some researchers to a scandal at a boys' home called Kincora in Belfast. We had the same in a series of North Wales children's homes. But what happens is when it comes out, they put the safe people in to, quote, investigate it. And of course, they might get a few of the small fry, but never the big people. And where this, Alex, then comes in to the bigger picture picture of the political direction of the world is this, and he's a wonderful example. Here you have a Satanist, a pedophile, and a serial, and I mean serial child killer, and he was the man, more than anyone else, through his political career, which goes way back into the 50s, 60s, who orchestrated Britain's entry into what is now the European Union. It was him as Prime Minister in 1972-73 that signed Britain into this now fascist organization, the European Union. Because, you see, he may have well done it because he was one of them and agreed with it. That may well have been the case with Heath. But once you've got these people, these pedophiles, in positions of power, and you in the shadows know that because you're involved with it, well, Mr. Heath or Mr. whoever, this is going to be your policy on foreign affairs. This is going to be your policy on finance, etc., etc. Oh, you don't fancy that? Oh, well, I've got a list of those children. This is how it works. Blackmail as a result of all this, which brings about this new world order by people pushing it on through political legislation because of the consequences of not pushing it on for them, is massively important in the way that this whole thing is orchestrated globally.
But as of April 2009, because of a change in legislation being introduced by Jack Straw, the Justice Secretary, the media will no longer be able to identify those involved in cases such as the Websters. Now, the Webster case is a child court case, family court case. And then this absolutely blatant statement, so it continues, it will also be illegal for any children currently in care to speak out even if they feel they're being mistreated.
I know, it sends a shiver up your spine.
Well,
that's Jack Straw, people.
What human being would want
Tony
to make
Blair's
it...
friend.
What human being would want to make it more difficult for young people to speak out if they're being... Surely the legislation should be to make it easier for them to speak out, isn't it?
What this man done is abnormal to decent human beings.
Yeah.
He should never have been allowed. Also, I think his son was caught dealing drugs as well. And his brother William was on the sex offenders register for, assaulting. One was a violent attack on 2 girls, his brother William.
Right.
Now, this man should never have been given a job because he had a vested interest.
Or was he given the job because of the man he is?
And you know, what I'm seeing, personally, all this Harry Potter stuff. Remember one of the Harry Potter books was called The Half-Blood Prince? It's all in there, Slithering House and all this business. And kids have been being massively prepared. There's, you have it in America, there's something called Twilight, which has been very big in Britain. That's about a sexy vampire, vampires are okay and all the rest of it. Because the whole vampire story is based on reality. You look at Dracula. He's Count Dracula. He's an aristocratic bloodline. He drinks blood. He only goes out at night, and some of these entities have a real problem with the Earth atmosphere, particularly sunlight. So all these things that are apparent stories and made up stories, they're based on fact. So much of it is.
Earlier I was showing mainstream news with Prince Charles at the original Dracula castle that he's trying to, quote, save and rebuild properly, and how he just sneaks around the area now, and how much he loves it, and how he's proud to be related to Dracula, and makes little jokes about it. I mean, look at him. He's a big, disgusting goblin who, on record, used to, hang out with Mr. Savile. I mean, it's just, there's no end to these people.
They were very good friends. Yes, absolutely. Him and Prince Charles. In fact, it's actually come out. In fact, Savile said it himself. This is how close Savile was to the royal family, Alex. He was brought in as an intermediary to try to find some agreement between Diana and Charles before their marriage broke up. The guy's a disc jockey. What's going on? You don't get in to that level of the royal family unless you're into what they're into. Interesting. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier.
Well, it just came out. They're finding all the time. They find dead bodies on different pieces of land, dead kids, you name it. I mean, but it's always just in the back of the news now.
Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned earlier that Savile said in his own words that the man that brought him into the royal family was Lord Louis Mountbatten, who, I mean, we're talking paedophilia again. And so it all kind of fits. And, you know, that guy, Thomas Hamilton, who shot all the children at the Dunblane School in Scotland.
Yeah, that was a big pedo scandal.
He was a paedophile, and he was another procurer of children for the rich and famous. This is why when they had the government cover-up, widely called an inquiry into Dunblane, that the person running it insisted that certain documents relating to the case were put sealed away for 100 years. And he said, oh, it's to protect the children. No, it's not. It's to protect the establishment, mate. I cannot, after nearly 25 years of this, I cannot express to people and stress to people more powerfully that Satanism, pedophilia is absolutely two of the, they're interconnected anyway, different expressions of the same thing in so many ways. They are in so many ways the cement, along with some other things, that hold the whole deal together.